Well, over this past weekend, my husband and I had already planned several months ago to go to a meeting in the Washington, D.C. area. And so we're back in Washington for a very long weekend, like Thursday through Sunday. And we decided to go in and join in the Million MAGA March in Washington on Saturday. To say that it was fun does not begin to describe. In fact, fun is too shallow a word. We happened to be meeting with over that weekend, other very serious, earnest conservatives. And as it turned out, several people decided to leave this meeting and go into the march in Washington. And words they used to describe it, other people it's profound, patriotic, inspiring. It actually almost brought tears to your eyes, because what you saw was literally, unlike what left-wing media is claiming, easily 1 million people in Washington started out at Freedom Plaza near the White House, and after some speeches and things like that, which I'll tell you about more in a moment, then the crowd made their way over to the Supreme Court. And so it ended by the Supreme Court. But I'll just give you one little measure of how big this crowd was. So we got into Washington, D.C. We had a cab coming from the hotel. Couldn't even get close to where we asked to be dropped. So we just got out and walked up to Freedom Plaza. I mean, literally, the place was packed with people who were smiling, happy, patriotic, upbeat, passionate, just filled with love of America and support for President Trump. People were waving flags, American flags, they're waving Trump flags, Trump 2020 flags, the kinds of things the crowd did. This crowd, actually, I want to finish describing the route, so I want to tell you why I feel so sure of the numbers. There were actually unofficial numbers released by the police department in Washington, D.C., who obviously they never want to acknowledge that anyone would show up for this rally. But there were apparently several Washington, D.C. Police Department people who said, yeah, it was easily 1 million people, probably 1.1 million. So at the Freedom Plaza, you hang around and do all we did there. And then they marched up to the Supreme Court. So we did that. We were up at the Supreme Court, certainly by noon. I don't even know exactly what time, but certainly by noon. And there were speeches, and the crowd is growing and growing. So 2 hours later, we decided, we had loved it. We'd heard speeches. We're all in favor of all that. So we decided to leave. So we're walking back away. If you know the Washington geography, walking from the Supreme Court. I guess you're heading west then, across the Capitol grounds, heading back down to get to some main intersection to get an Uber back to our hotel. So as we're walking back, after having stood at the Supreme Court for 2 hours, we're walking along Pennsylvania Avenue, where people have been walking up from Freedom Plaza, and still more marchers were making their way up to the Senate, to this meeting, to the Supreme Court gathering 2 hours later, meaning the crowds were still feeding in. People as far as the eye can see. I sent Matt I sent him numerous pictures. One is a big aerial view of the crowd. I want to show that first. People, this was exactly what it looked like. I mean, there were people everywhere. There were people lining the streets, people joining in the march. It was just a massive, massive crowd. As I say, upbeat, happy, just there to support President Trump. And contrasting with what I'm about to show you in just a few minutes, what Antifa and Black Lives Matter did and their day in Washington that day, here's what the people in the Million MAGA March did. And by the way, there were 2 marches going on that day, the Million MAGA March, which is in support of President Trump, and a different one had been organized by a different group called Stop the Steal, which is essentially putting out letting the world know, letting America know that we're not going to let the Democrats get away with the theft of this most recent election, which we'll be talking about most of the rest of the show. So the Stop the Steal and the Million MAGA March meet up in Washington. So it was just a massive group. Here's what we did to celebrate what our activities were, the pro-Trump MAGA rally, Stop the Steal crowd. To start with, I sent Matt a video. This is what we first met at the Freedom Plaza. Here's what we were singing and doing. This is the one we're singing. If you could just play that, Matt.
We hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. O'er the ramparts we watched, were
million MAGA people and the Stop the Steal people doing that. I also wanted to show you couldn't really, that was actually a phone video from my phone, just standing there going like this. And so, you know, it's not really gathering a picture of the big size of the crowd, just from what I could see where I was standing. But there were people of every possible race, ethnicity, national origin, age. I mean, there was for among many things. I took hundreds of pictures. I can't show you all of them, but just a few pictures I'll show you in a minute. There was a Buddhist monk, literally. There was a Catholic priest. In fact, more than one Catholic priest. There were people who looked, honestly, if you saw them on the street, you know, and you were trying to take a wild guess at their politics, you might think, well, looks like a leftist. I mean, literally, you know, pink hair, covered in tattoos, waving the Trump flag, we love Trump. I mean, it was the most amazing thing, the most amazing outpouring, just love of America, families with small children, very senior people, people in wheelchairs, and all there was at every corner of the event, everything that went on, there was love of America. You heard Pledge of Allegiance. You heard the national anthem. We all said the Pledge of Allegiance. They had different people get up and singing and giving prayers for America, prayers for Trump, prayers for justice, prayers for truth. And you had people just exuberantly happy and passionate and inspired. That's what there was. I'll share a few more pictures with you of the good guys, which was the Million MAGA March, and I'll show you how the left behaved in this country. So there was a picture. I'll show you. My husband and I were there. So we had one picture of us. That is my husband and I standing right before it got started. Well, actually, I think things had gotten started earlier than we got there, but that was when we arrived outside the Freedom Plaza, and there were, you know, thousands and thousands of more people than you can see in that picture. But there we were. There's another. I'll just stream through the pictures, Matt. I sent you a bunch of ones that were from the rally. This was just the what you could see. This is outside Freedom Plaza, and honest to goodness, the place was just packed with people, as you can see. Really pretty picture of the American flag and the sun, all that. And the next one I think you'll see is this is just how it looked. And I'll tell you something interesting. This is a picture. We were with another friend of ours who was also at this conference. I think she's the one who took this picture, but you can see the sea of flags, Trump flags, American flags, and then you can see the way the stoplights happened to be set that day. They have there's the traffic light sitting there with the red arrow, two red arrows to the left, green arrow going straight. And I sent this out this morning. I do a weekly email, which I usually send out on Fridays, but got a little behind this week, so I got it out this morning. But we're headed toward the Capitol. As you likely know, the Supreme Court is, behind the Capitol, a little more east of the Capitol. So we're heading up there. But this is what it looked like. And I put this picture in the weekly email, and someone replied, well, isn't that symbolic? The red is saying, no, don't turn left, go straight, go toward the Capitol, go with America is the red, green arrow. That wasn't the purpose of that, but it was a great, great picture. So that was the rally was just, I can barely tell you how upbeat, patriotic, happy, inspiring, passionate this whole thing was. So that's what the conservatives did. We left actually after hanging around a few hours, because honestly, the speakers were all great. Louis Gohmert spoke, Congressman Gohmert spoke, and just a bunch of people. But we were also missing the other conference that were supposed to be there, so we decided to leave. Well, after we left, and not because we left, but within a couple of hours of our leaving, as it's starting to get a little bit dark, as the late afternoon setting in, Antifa and BLM showed up. And so I will say, when we were outside of the Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court, the whole plaza in front of the Supreme Court was filled with people. There were people speaking, and if you're staring at the Supreme Court, the Capitol's behind you, and so if you're staring at the Supreme Court, you cross the street. There's a wall, and people are sitting on the walls. There are all sorts of great, by the way, handmade posters and signs. They were so good. Some of them a little too colorful to say on radio, I guess, but pretty funny. And then the whole Capitol grounds behind us, just filled with people. Again, happy, upbeat, nobody yelling, nobody using bad language, nobody attacking other people. There was no anti-anything. It was pro-America, pro-Trump. And also, there was no littering. I mean, the most amazing thing, you leave 1.1 million people there, and it looked like the cleaning crew just come through. It looked so great when we left. But after we left, Antifa and Black Lives Matter showed up, and they began attacking people. And so I have a few little videos. These were taken from an article in Breitbart. I just want to show you a couple of the videos that were taken of the way people were treated, how Antifa and BLM treated people who came to Washington to express love for their country. So these are in no particular order, I guess, Matt. We can just go with the first one. Okay.
That's go time.
Okay, that's the first one. That's some guy, not a young guy, trying to ride his bike. He's got on a white Trump shirt and red shorts. They push him off his bike, which you don't see in that video. They kick him in the face while he's on the ground. Now they didn't kill him, but this is going to tie to what we're going to talk about the rest of the day when we get finished talking about this march. There is no way on this planet Earth that 80 million Americans voted to support the left in this country. What you see, Antifa and Black Lives Matter, they are today's Democrat Party. They are the American left. The American left encourages them, foments them. The Democrat Party never cracks down on them, never says, hey, that shouldn't be happening. And they so overwhelm the violent, radical, Marxist, anti-American left, so overwhelm the police departments in our country that what you just saw and everything else I'm going to show you in videos, the police can't even do anything about it. There's so many people coming to create harm, to do harm, to attack other people, dressed off, many of them dressed in all black, covered up, you can't see them, bringing megaphones, screaming in people's faces, physically accosting them, physically beating them up. Later in the afternoon, as it got later, these same Antifa BLM thugs went outside hotels. There were some hotels that, for whatever reason, they believed that there were more of the Trump ralliers staying at, and they were shining lights, the laser lights at the hotels. They were to bother to harass the people staying there. They're harassing people eating in outdoor restaurants. They were out of their minds, but they so overwhelm the police departments in this country that the police can't even do anything about that. You think in a normal life in America, especially in normal small town America, you had some thugs come along and push a guy off his bicycle and kick him in the face. Oh, and they poured some water on him or some liquid on him too. He probably was at least momentarily worried it was something flammable. And the police can't even do anything about it. They're just helpless. They can't even do anything about it. This is intentional, my friends. This overtaking of America is intentional. This beating down of our society, our culture, our police, our law and order is intentional by the anti-American Marxist left that now is the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party owns that conduct. They own the conduct of those people. Every single Antifa and Black Lives Matter violent protest, violent rally, violent mob activity is the Democrat Party of today. It is. There is no difference. They won't denounce it. They won't stop it. And by their very rhetoric and the things they tell Americans is true about America, they foment it. But let's do a few other things, quick, the rest of the things I sent you, Matt, from Washington, other things they did to people. Okay, so this is this older couple, the lady's right there, the guy. Okay, they just want to walk away. They just want to walk away. Okay, so this is these these are peaceful protesters here. First, they're just screaming in their face, and so you imagine you're this older couple. The police aren't helping them. The police can't even keep up with all this junk. They're harassing this couple. They end up knocking the guy's hat off his head. And look how frightened you'd be. It's getting dark. There's no police to be seen. This mob crowd is there. Nothing, and as I said, nothing happens to them. Nothing happens to them. They're obviously afraid. Next one, Matt. There's another one. Okay, that woman with the blue jean, that young black woman, she just punched that woman in the back of her head. Punched her in the back of the head. Does anything happen? The answer is no. Nothing happens. They engage in this conduct, and then the idiot crowds that follow them around video it as though they're proud of themselves. This is the state of affairs in America. This is the state of affairs in the capital city of America. The Democrats in this country have spent 4 years fomenting hatred in this country, attacking Donald Trump for things he didn't do, lying about him, from the Russia collusion hoax to the impeachment, to blaming him for COVID when he's the only one doing a darn thing protecting America, while all the left in this country is mocking him as he's trying to protect America. The left, in conjunction with the media in this country, have spent 4 years fomenting hatred among ignorant fools in this country, hatred of Donald Trump, blaming him for things that aren't his fault, labeling him with labels he doesn't deserve. They have fomented this hatred. They have encouraged American people to view our president as some horrible human being. As frequently as you know, they analogize him to Hitler, which is just preposterous. They are responsible for this conduct. And this is what I'm telling. We're going to spend the rest of the day talking a lot about the election. But what I want to tell you is there's no chance on the planet Earth that only 73 million Americans voted for President Trump's reelection and 80 million voted for Biden. People, this did not happen. Everyone with an iota of sanity and intelligence left knows Joe Biden did not win this election. He did not win. He is not president-elect. The massive corruption and fraud that just overwhelmed this most recent election cycle, which is our next topic we're going to get to in a moment, it so overwhelmed our election cycle, and the left actually thought that if they just cheated, and we're going to go through the next election cycle, all the steps along the way getting us to where we are right now, but the left actually thought that they could convince Americans, 73 million of whom voted for Trump and want him to continue standing up for America. The leftists who orchestrated this massive corruption in our most recent election actually thought if they just magically announced the day after Election Day, well, I know we all went to bed, looked like Trump was going to, but hey, lo and behold, Biden won all these other states. Look at all these mail-in ballots. Look at all these ballots. I mean, they thought they could overwhelm the American people with this, wow, who knew? And they thought, wrongly, that the American people would just accept it. This is what the Democrat media mob in this country thought, that the American people would say, oh, guess it turns out, guess Biden won, who knew? And that they would just take it and sit down and shut up. But people, this time, this effort, this attack, because this is not just an attack, this election corruption, this fraud in our election is not just an attack on President Trump. It's actually far more an attack on the American people, on the very existence of America as a country, on the existence of the Constitution, on the right of the American people to exercise free elections, fair elections, and choose our leadership. A fundamental right guaranteed in the very formation of our country is that we, the people, govern this country. The left thought they could cook up this impossibly nefarious theft of an election, and the American people would just roll over. And you know what everyone figured out on Saturday? And these rallies, we happen to be in Washington, but these happen all over America, and they will continue happening. Because the simple truth is, the left has awakened, as they say, a sleeping giant. The American people, the 73 million people who know perfectly well that Trump is not guilty of the idiotic accusations the left make against him, and they know perfectly well there were not 80 million Americans who said, oh, I'd rather have the chaos of Antifa, I'd rather have Black Lives Matter harassing innocent citizens in the streets and burning buildings and killing police officers. Yeah, sign me up for that. It didn't happen. It did not happen. Biden did not get 80 million votes on Election Day, and he didn't win. And so this is what our task is. The task of patriots in this country to continue the fight, continue the push to demand as far as we can. We want to show America, we want to show the left that we are not going to put up with this attempt to steal the most consequential election in American history. We are not going to put up with it. And that, my very fine friends, is today's First Five.